Once I got a letter, "We are in a civil marriage and constantly arguing because of my mother-in-law." If you have a civil marriage, then technically you don't have a mother-in-law. They continue. "I know I'm also at fault, but it's very difficult to overcome myself. I wish my husband would take my side, at least sometimes." How do I overcome myself? Because when I meet my husband halfway, everything is fine. But when I oppose him, he calls me selfish. I think the reason I can't overcome myself is because my partner does not propose to me. Partner? Just imagine how we degrade ourselves. Imagine the degree of degradation. Imagine living with a partner for years. Partner, really? This isn't tennis. Family life isn't a tennis match, is it? Do you realize what we do to ourselves? Why does this happen? Because we don't reflect on what family truly is. Before creating a family, you must think about what it means. In fact, family is a very deep, very painful, and even dangerous relationship. Personal relationships are the most difficult, the hardest, and most sensitive. Today I was examining patients by photographs, looking at each of them, studying their health issues and selecting treatments in a rented apartment, when I suddenly heard a woman shouting behind the wall. It sounded like she was yelling at her child or someone else very strongly. This immediately creates an impression that she must be a bad person because she is yelling, right? But I started praying because her yelling triggered a feeling inside me that she was a bad person. I felt pain from her shouting. It caused me pain. Why did she cause pain? Because she lacks happiness and tries to extract it forcefully from others by screaming. In fact, yelling means one thing: give me happiness. I cannot live without happiness. I am tormented by the injustice of this world, and yours in particular. I started praying, and in prayer I managed to increase my inner spiritual strength, and with this strength I influenced her subtle energy body, and at that moment I saw that she was suffering greatly. She wasn't to blame for the aggression. Her life circumstances caused her aggression. Her life situation caused it. People argue because they don't understand what is happening. They don't know what is happening at all. Now I will make a few statements, and you will understand that arguing is pointless. First statement: only a saint can truly understand another person. No one else understands. Everyone else just tries. I said this and you didn't believe me. Do you know why? Because you don't understand me. If you felt my heart, you would immediately write down what I said because you were preparing for this. But since you didn't write it down, it means you didn't believe it. Why didn't you believe? Because you don't feel my heart. I speak from experience. Why are there so many people at these lectures? Because I only speak the truth. I don't invent anything, I only share my life experience. My experience shows that people in fact don't feel each other deeply. They can try, some can accept. A reasonable person is someone who accepts that it's possible.
Is love when you feel?
No, what you call love is not love, it's infatuation. Listen to me now. You've defined enjoying a person as love. We enjoy being with someone, we feel good with each other. You say, this is love, and at that time you can feel what a person needs. But do you know why? You can feel the other because you have enough happiness inside to feel them. You feel good with the person, and so you feel them because you have the strength for it. But let's take another situation when you don't experience happiness from a person because he's lying drunk in a puddle. Do you still feel him? No, you feel disgusted. There is no happiness to digest his pain, so you don't truly feel him.
And if a person is generally happy, can they?
Feel others, you mean? Yes, they can. That's a very high level of consciousness called holiness. When someone is happy overall, why are they happy? Because there is a source of happiness that constantly gives energy. Why does it give them energy? Because they constantly want to serve others, and they channel divine power. This is called holiness. But ordinary people aren't like that. They are selfish by nature. They enjoy when others please them and avoid those who don't, because there is no happiness there. We feel others when we feel good with them. And when we argue with each other, what happens? We separate. We can no longer feel the other. The other person is in pain, and I don't have enough strength to respond to their pain. There is no strength for this, so I cannot understand them. Even more so, a man generally cannot understand a woman unless God allows him to do so. A woman's psyche is very delicate. She feels everything deeply, sensitively, subtly. Life for her is like walking a tightrope. Everything can hurt her. She experiences discomfort from everything. But a man has a completely different psyche. He doesn't pick up on many things that a woman does. He is more attuned to other things. A man is tuned into goals and achievements. He reacts strongly to his ability to achieve something. A woman reacts strongly to relationships. She is sensitive to relationships. A man isn't. So when a woman says, "Don't you understand how I feel with you when you behave like this? Why did you say it to me in that tone?" He doesn't think about this tone at all. He didn't think about it. He doesn't understand what tone to use when speaking with her. He speaks in the tone that comes naturally to him. He feels no need to change the tone, because tone is not a category to register or to think about. But a woman hears that tone and instantly feels hurt. She says, "Don't you see you are being rude?" He doesn't see and likely never will. Because in this world we live inside very dense selfishness. Our selfishness is very dense. Try to understand this. Your selfishness is very dense. And this dense selfishness in which we live blocks us from understanding others, even as it demands that others understand us. Do you know how difficult it is to truly feel another person? You have to pray deeply to feel their inner pain. You need to pray deeply just to sense it. To the woman in the 4th row, I see you. You thought differently in your life, and you're a little shocked now by what I'm saying, aren't you? But you can't even imagine how hard it is for me to understand how shocked you are. It's very difficult, although I'm trying with all my strength. I have the ability to do it, but even then it's very difficult because you have your own life, your perception of the world, and you are a completely different person. Here we are not connected by any ties. This makes communication easier because we don't have any attachments. But in family life, a knot of attachment builds up between husband and wife. It's the kind of knot where if one feels bad, the other immediately does too. This knot makes them enjoy together very strongly and suffer together very strongly. When a person suffers even a little bit, their intelligence shuts off completely. So I suffer and say to my loved one, "Stop doing that." But the very words I use cause strong pain in their heart, and when they are hurt, they react to the pain, not to the words. They no longer understand what they are being told. For example, I'm helping a close person to remove a splinter, and I explain that I will take a needle now and remove the splinter. I begin by inserting the needle gently, but they scream and instantly pull their hand away. I remind them, "Listen, we agreed to remove the splinter," and they respond, "Yes, but it hurts." I offer again to remove it, but they refuse. "Let it rot, it hurts too much." That is what pain does. When someone is in pain, they don't care what's happening in the relationship. They're simply in pain. People can't understand what others want from them when they're in pain. Someone once asked me a question, why when I behave well with my husband he likes it, but when I start reacting to him I become the selfish one. We're all built this way. We don't just get used to being treated well. We don't even understand that it requires some effort. Here is a classic example. A woman doesn't know that for a man to be emotionally responsive to her requires an enormous effort. He is constantly moving in his psyche when he's with a woman. For example, she says she wants ice cream. He agrees. His mind is stable. He doesn't understand spontaneous cravings. He doesn't understand how someone can spontaneously want ice cream. He says that everything needs to be discussed in advance. Still, because he loves her, he says, "Okay, let's skip the movie and get ice cream instead." They go and she suddenly changes her mind on the way because a woman's mind is constantly moving. Now she wants a pastry. Again, he agrees. If he behaves like this, she begins to think it's normal. We get used to someone being patient, but one day a close person can't be patient anymore. You tell that person you're selfish. Even if they were patient 100 times before, at that point they couldn't be patient anymore. You think that the other person is selfish. You don't say it like that because you're polite. You just feel hurt and think so. Why do you think this to yourself? Why does this happen? Because we rarely see how much effort others make just to live with us. Not because we're bad people, but because we're all like this. We're all the same, you see. We strongly believe that everything is fine with us. We think we are easy to live with. We believe this strongly, but in fact, it's an illusion. That's why people argue and misunderstand each other, because the reality is completely different. We have a very difficult ability to perceive another person. We're standing on different grounds, and we see different schemes for clarifying relationships. But in reality, we don't have a relationship. I stand on one ground and you on another. How do we clarify our relationship? There's no need to talk about anything. It's useless because understanding doesn't come from words. Clarity in relationships comes through the heart. First, you need to establish heart contact. Once heart contact is established, relationships become clear and understanding follows naturally. Let me give you an example. Who thinks I'm a good person? Raise your hand. You've never seen me in your life. Why are you raising your hand? How do you know? You're just listening to lectures. And as you listen to lectures, you feel my heart as if you know me. You simply feel me from the heart. You don't know what I do in the clinic. how I behave at work or at home. You don't know this, but still, you sense that I'm a good person. Those who raised their hands, I looked at you carefully. I also consider you good people. Because I feel this contact too, not just that you feel it, I also feel it. This is called a correct relationship. Correct relationships don't depend on what the other person does. According to the Vedas, people's actions are driven by the influence of fate. Fate pressures the other person. Sometimes they do one thing, sometimes another. But overall, if people are connected in their hearts, when they are emotionally attuned to each other correctly, they are able to overcome fate together. And people's lives change as a result of this heart contact. This kind of connection is based on proper listening, not just listening with ears, but listening with faith, listening to the voice of the heart. And in family relationships, it's harder to do. It's easier to establish heart-to-heart contact while listening to lectures, but in family life, it's more difficult. Because we don't hear the right kind of words from our loved ones every day, and as a result, under the influence of mutual selfishness, our relationships begin to break down. Still, if you begin to do in your heart the same thing you do while listening to lectures, simply establishing heart-to-heart contact with a person, you'll see how your life begins to change. You will also notice how relationships will begin to change. The first thing you'll notice is that you no longer react so strongly to the pain caused by a loved one's harshness. It won't be so painful for you anymore. When heart-to-heart contact is established, it immediately becomes easier to live in the relationship. Raise your hand if you have already felt this. Many already know what this feels like. Now, the tactics for clarifying a relationship are, first comes heart-to-heart connection, and then certain rules follow. Rule number 1, women should not speak emotionally. No drama and as few emotions as possible. Emotions shut a man's heart. Men are afraid of emotions. So when you are clarifying things, you must speak with restraint and calm, as if you're talking to yourself. And how do we usually speak to ourselves? Gently and calmly. Because we know that we will hear ourselves, there is no need to raise our voice or insist. Here, to speak gently, calmly, and something interesting happens. It feels as if it's absolutely pointless trying to get through to the other person right now, as if they are completely unreachable. But when someone really hears you, it all sinks in deep. It flies straight inside, although it may feel like you've spoken into emptiness. That's why we often wait for a reaction, but don't wait for any reaction. Just speak calmly from your center, and let your words go inward, even if it feels like you've said them into a void. Because the heart is hidden deep within, and that's where your words should land, deep in the heart. Everything may be raging inside, but let's reason with ourselves. First, inner life, then conversations. You can't just cool down by willpower, not when the emotional connection is charged negatively. Sometimes it's impossible, sometimes might even sting a little, just a small jab, and then it gets easier to calm down. But then comes repentance, and we apologize by saying, I acted wrongly, I am sorry. Then prayer, cooling down, re-establishing a heart connection, and only then a gentle, non-demanding conversation. Pick the right moment, best after your husband has eaten. After eating, he's most calm, most accessible. He has eaten, and that's when you should talk to him calmly, softly, and without pushing. The best way to talk is when a woman speaks about her problems. She says, I have one problem. I can't get used to you coming home and walking into the kitchen with dirty shoes. I just can't get used to it. Please help me. Help me understand how to adjust myself internally so that I don't react to it. Now, what are you actually saying? You are saying, please don't walk in the kitchen with dirty shoes, but you are saying it differently. You are doing it in a way that gives him space to come to that decision himself without pressure. You spoke about what bothers you, not about what he must do. Such a conversation is actually a heart-to-heart conversation. A heart-to-heart conversation is difficult because when we are in pain, we only want to talk about the other person. When we are in pain, the intelligence stops working in pure goodness and the false ego stops working in pure goodness. The false ego in degradation begins to work. That means that the true ego stops working and the false ego starts reacting. And at that moment, there is a strong desire to jab the other person, even if just a little. It's just how nature works. Nothing can be done about it. But if your goal is for the other person to really understand you, if you jab, they definitely won't understand. You may think it's elementary and basic, but who does not know not to walk into the kitchen with dirty shoes? Even a horse would get it. This assumption also creates problems because for women many things seem obvious that are difficult for men to grasp. Do you really think a man doesn't understand that he shouldn't walk into the kitchen in dirty shoes? He does. Now the question is, why does he still do it? Because he's tired. He just came from work. He's starving. All he wants is to quickly check if there's anything in the refrigerator or not, and then do everything else. This is just one example of how a man's mind works in such moments. But if he feels your love, if he senses your pain, he will remember it at that moment when he takes a step. He will remember, and he will take off his shoes so that he won't disturb you. True, both men and women need to have relationship-clarifying conversations. A man should never give philosophical lectures to a woman. He should never argue with her from a philosophical position, trying to reason everything logically. There's no need to prove anything to a woman. A woman doesn't need to be convinced because she either accepts everything with her heart or she doesn't. A woman needs to be explained simply and clearly. I have one difficulty, just one. The difficulty is that I get very tired when I come home from work. I feel tired, and it's hard for me to give you maximum attention right away. I know you have been waiting for me to come home from work and expected me to hug you, kiss you, and be very affectionate with you. I understand that perfectly, but it's so hard for me to do that right away because I come home exhausted and I need some time just to take a shower, to rest a bit, and then I'll be able to give you that attention. We need to talk about our feelings, but often a tired husband comes home and his wife ends up pushing him even harder. Picture this. A man comes home tired from work. He looks at his wife. He says, "Please give me something to eat. I'm so tired." But she was waiting for emotion from him. And she snaps back because she feels hurt that he's not paying attention to her. So she says, "All you want from me is food. You don't need me at all. I can feel it." How does he perceive that when he's tired, he just came from work and she's giving him a hard time on top of that? To him, it feels like madness. He's exhausted and now he's being scolded too. He feels that she doesn't understand him either. And then the fight begins. Why does this happen? Because we don't understand each other. There's a joke. A person stands in line and asks, "What are they selling?" "Shashiki." He thinks, "What are shashiki?" He stands there, asks everyone. Everyone says, "Shashiki." He buys them. Sure enough, these are shashiki, and he goes home. The idea of the joke is that after 5 years of living together, we suddenly realize that we don't really know each other. Our hearts are miles apart from each other. You have to live together for a while to truly see that. And then the miracle happens. We discover that we have no real relationship at all, so why are we shouting at each other? Because we are disconnected. The wife doesn't feel her husband's exhaustion. She just wants affection the moment he comes home. She doesn't realize she needs to first help him undress, send him to the shower so he can relax and feed him. Then he will naturally give her that affection. But if she demands affection from him, it disappears. It's just human nature. If I ask someone to smile at me now, can they? Sure, once, maybe twice, but if I ask you 5 times, it gets hard. And if someone asks you every day, it will drive you mad. This is a natural thing. If a man has eaten and relaxed, he smiles naturally at his wife. Who else would he smile at? Of course, he smiles at her. But when a woman is waiting for a smile, what's the result? The exact opposite occurs. You see, we must suppress that craving, that need for love from a close person. We have to destroy it, we have to remove it, and we do that through inner life. The less inner life a person has, the more they crave from outside. The more inner life we build, the fewer external needs we have, and the more we can serve. We give ourselves to another person, and that gradually brings more happiness into a relationship, although not immediately. It works like an iceberg. You serve a person, and it's like pouring water into a bottomless well. You give and give, you serve and rejoice in the other person. And they're like, well, of course, that's how it should be. No reaction, no response, nothing in return. This lasts about a year, or even 2. This is compared to an iceberg that melts from below while the top remains the same, and everything looks exactly the same. But it melts from below, and one day what happens? It flips over. And how does that flip happen? Usually in the same way. When you've given so much that you're getting tired of it, you start to feel some despair. You no longer want to build a close relationship, so you speak to the other person kindly. And you say, I don't think I can go on serving you like this because I don't feel any response. I just can't keep doing it alone anymore. That's it. Then the other person says, you are actually the best person I've ever had in my life. I never told you this, but you are such an amazing person. I have never met anyone like you in my life. I was just taking advantage of your kindness, but I didn't want to show it. Then gradually, the person begins to serve you. The iceberg flips over at the most critical moment of the relationship. And that is normal, but you have to earn it. As one woman wrote me a note, I distance myself from my husband as you advised, Dr. Torsunov. He also listens to your lectures. And my husband called me and said, "Listen, distance for another week. I feel so good without you. Stay at your mom's for a week longer." Who should have distanced themselves from whom? She had worn him out, left, and went to her mother's for a week. So he's resting and he feels better. You need to serve the other person. To truly influence someone, you first have to invest the energy of love in them, not get on their nerves first and then distance yourself. That doesn't work. Relationship clarity comes through a calm voice, with no reasoning from a man and with no emotions from a woman. Simply through sharing your inner state, describing your own struggles, and explaining your own problems. Even if the person says, "Well, yes, those are your problems, not mine, I agree," still, your words leave a good feeling in their heart. Then what's the next step? Keep going in this direction because there won't be an immediate result. Right now it's like there is a stone in our hearts. We won't get through immediately. We need to continue. And slowly your loved one will begin to do things as needed, although they still don't fully understand why it's important. They'll act differently not because they were lectured, but because they finally heard you, and to avoid trouble, other approaches won't even reach them. See, there is external consciousness when a person believes that external objects will bring happiness. And there is internal consciousness when a person believes that this particular thing will bring happiness. The main goal of life is directed toward just one thing. A person either directs all their strength inward or outward. It's either one or the other. I understand your unspoken question. I'm answering it. When a person directs all their strength inward, their character qualities develop, and these developed character qualities allow them to have a calm external life. The prosperity necessary for life comes to a person as a result of virtue. How does this happen? Let me explain. When a person is developed internally and has a very strong character, God gives them a corresponding social circle. They gain high social status, connecting with people of developed character. These people help them find a job where they don't have to work excessively hard. That's how the system works. So a person should invest all their energy into increasing their devoutness and their virtue, into living an inner life, not an outer one. If a person puts all their energy into living an external life, they can still achieve prosperity, but at a greater cost. In India, I approached a man who was carrying bricks on his head just like this. I said, "Why don't you learn something else? Why do you work so hard all day for a mere penny, for a handful of rice?" He said, "I'm illiterate. I can't learn anything. I don't know how to write." Then find a literate friend, and in the evening, when you've finished working, start learning the letters. Over time, you'll learn more and more. Eventually, you'll master some craft where you'll need to work less, but earn more. You know how the conversation ended? He went on carrying bricks. Do you know why? Because he doesn't believe in the process. Likewise, someone who exhausts themselves earning money has neither the strength nor the time left at the end of the day to work on themselves. And they remain in the same life situation. They keep working hard, thinking they can change this situation by improving their material qualifications. But in reality, the situation changes when a person's devoutness and virtue increase. The more devoutness and virtue, the deeper their relationships with people, and the more others help them maintain their status in society. It's difficult for me to explain this to you. Let's consider this situation. There are people who can help others get high-status jobs. Why can't I communicate with them? What's the reason? You might say, because they have more money. No, that's not necessarily true. I now have many friends with very high positions in society, but before I couldn't even get close to them. Because I had an underdeveloped character. Now they like what I do, and they are willing to help. I worked on myself. My parents are from the lowest social class, just workers without higher education. And I rose from that class to the one where I don't need to work excessively hard to live. That doesn't mean I don't work. I work all day, everything is fine, and I'm not bragging. I work without getting paid, by the way. I simply help people develop and grow. I didn't need to work at all, but I work at a clinic. I treat everyone there, and everything depends on me because I'm developing this clinic. I want people to live together and engage in spiritual practice. We are creating a community, a society of people who are very seriously growing as individuals in close, intimate, deep relationships with each other. So I work for that goal, not just to make a living or survive. According to the Vedas, a person who works on themselves lives for the benefit of others. A person who doesn't work on themselves constantly struggles to survive. Because they are influenced by different forces. One is influenced by passion. The force of passion means a strong attachment. They cannot live without money. About a week ago, I attended a training and lived in a Vedic monastery for about 4 or 5 days. There was training there, and I lived there. Monks live there. They're studying all the time and don't worry about not having a salary or money. They eat whatever food they are given. A very calm and peaceful life. I asked them if they were worried about not having a salary. They say no. Should that be a concern? I asked them, you don't own property or an apartment. How will your life unfold in the future? They responded, if I am increasing my devoutness and virtue now, if I study, then the future will be bright. Even if I don't stay in the monastery, it will still be bright. Why does he say that? What's the reason? Because he knows he has knowledge. Now imagine you lose your job and get placed in a situation where you only study, get fed a little, and there is no sex, no television, no Miami. There is just study and spiritual life, and that's it. You wouldn't be able to live like that. Most people wouldn't. Because people want to have fun, to indulge. They want external happiness. This desire for pleasure is what makes us work. Otherwise, we would all live in monasteries, study there, raise our spiritual level, and life would become happier. But because we want to enjoy life, we need a family, an apartment, and not just any apartment, but a decent one, good enough to live comfortably in Moscow. We need many things, a car, and everything else. And all this forces us to work hard and deprives us of the chance to learn how to live correctly. It creates constraints. When a person has an external consciousness directed outward, then they have one kind of life. When they are directed inward, they have another life. And inward direction gradually makes it possible to get rid of the need to strain hard. The same resources come to a person more easily. You might ask, why does he get it easier? Doesn't that person become a parasite, living at someone else's expense? No, because such a person does more valuable things for others, much more valuable. Managing production is a more valuable thing than doing the labor because it requires stronger character and more devoutness. People won't obey a person who doesn't have that kind of character. A man once asked me, Dr. Torsunov, do I have the nature of a manager or not? I replied, yes, you have the nature to manage people. He said, then why don't people listen to me? I told him, because you are not developed. You tell someone to work properly, but you can't say it kindly, with depth, with strength, with faith, so that they feel that you are right. You can't discipline or fire them because you think, if I fire them, there will be no one else. That's it. Why won't you have anyone else? Because you don't deserve anyone better. People sense this and start manipulating you. Develop yourself as a person, and then you'll be able to manage people. How will I know this? He asked. You will know it when one person becomes loyal to you, sticks with you, works with you, and feels protected by you. So you should have one assistant. When there are two such persons, you are ready to handle two assistants. 1,000 people, then you can run an entire large enterprise. This depends on one's inner development. So what is inner life or inward direction? Getting up early, reading prayers, learning to eat properly so that food doesn't ignite external consciousness. What kind of food ignites external consciousness? Exhale and inhale now, because what I'm about to say may upset you. You'll probably disagree. Exhale, inhale. That food is meat, fish, and alcohol. It anchors you to external pleasures. When a person hasn't had a drink, they don't crave sex as much. They control themselves. Why do people have a drink before going to bed together? Why? It's easier to jump into bed. Yes, you've had a drink, and immediately it gets going, everything starts working. But without a drink, it's somehow awkward. After drinking, you feel like smoking. You don't smoke until you have a drink. And so on. Do you understand how the system works? There are things that chain a person to the external world. A person smokes because they cannot relax. Why can't they relax? Because they don't work on themselves. If they prayed, the prayer would relax them. There'd be no need to smoke. But when they smoke, they artificially relax themselves. Alcohol also relaxes a person artificially. As a result, they become attached to the external life and keep themselves on the platform of external living with the help of artificial stimulants. Relaxing movies are also such artificial stimulants. There are different ways movies help people relax. For example, if someone's life is difficult and full of chaos, they watch horror movies because there's even more chaos there. If there's more on the screen, then it feels my life is okay by comparison. Or let's say someone wants sex, but they don't have that much sex in their real life. They engage in sex on the subtle energy body level through watching these films. Watching such movies gives them an opportunity to relax. They want more sex than they are having, so they watch erotic films to fulfill their needs. It's called external life. It is very artificial by its nature, because people deceive themselves every second of that kind of life. They say, everything is good in my life, everything is fine with us. But in reality, there's nothing good about it. I'll explain now. It's very simple. Close your eyes and remember your loved one. If a pure, bright feeling toward them immediately arises, if you recall them with a pure, bright memory, then you have the right kind of relationship. You have an inner life. But if you remember them with resentment, or if something feels off somehow, then there are no real relationships, just conflict and discord. You're trying to build these relationships, but doing it the wrong way. If you can't recall the person at all, then there is no inner relationship whatsoever. And if you remember them with pleasure, not with a pure, bright memory, but with enjoyment, then you're going through a phase where you're simply using each other for pleasure and getting attached. The time will come, and that enjoyment will end. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.